My parents made me leave so my nephew could have my room. I didn't fight. I just disappeared until they needed me again. Then I let them feel what silence sounds like. They told me it would be temporary. That was the exact word my mom used, temporary. Like she was talking about a guest towel or some half-baked plan that would be gone by next week. Not the room I had slept in for over 19 years. Not the one I painted myself when I turned 13 because blue felt more grown-up than the safari wallpaper from when I was a kid. It was a Tuesday evening, middle of summer. I had just gotten back from work, shoes still on, pizza in one hand, when they sat me down in the living room. My dad cleared his throat in that way he always did when he wanted to sound in control. Mom had her hands folded, like she was about to pray or confess something. I knew something was off the second I saw their faces. They started soft. Said how proud they were of me. How I had really come into my own lately. How being 21 meant I was stepping into manhood. It all sounded like the beginning of a graduation speech. I nodded along, waiting for the real part to drop. Then Mom said it. Your sister and Kyle are going through a rough patch. He needs somewhere stable while he gets back on his feet. And well, we figured since you're an adult now. She trailed off. Dad picked it up like it was some business handoff. We were thinking you could give up your room for a little while. Just until they figure things out. You know, be flexible. Help the family. I looked between them, trying to find the punchline. My sister's kid? In my room? That kid who broke my signed baseball and laughed about it? The one who once drew all over my dresser with permanent marker and said it was my fault for leaving it too plain? They told me it would only be for a month or two. That they would move some of my things into the garage. You can always visit whenever you want, Mom added, like she was offering me weekend rights to my own childhood. I did not fight. I wish I could say I stood up, shouted, told them how messed up it was. But I didn't. I just sat there, holding my cold pizza, nodding slowly while something hollow cracked open in my chest. You're an adult now, Dad said again, like that explained everything. I went up to my room that night and just sat on the bed. Looked around at the posters, the bookshelf, the corner where my guitar used to stand before I sold it for rent money. The space still smelled like me, laundry soap, deodorant, that faint woody cologne I could never afford more of. I stared at the ceiling and tried not to cry. They never saw me as permanent, just convenient. And maybe I had always known that. But hearing it said out loud in such a calm, reasonable voice, that cut in a way I did not know how to explain. They were already clearing out the closet the next day. The worst part was not the moving. It was watching my mom stack up my life like it was just clutter. She was pulling books off the shelves, ones I had kept since middle school, even the water-damaged paperback I read during the week of my first heartbreak. She asked if I still needed it. I said yes. She put it in the donate pile anyway. My bed? Taken apart by noon. Dad wanted to open up the space so Kyle could have room for a bigger play area. Apparently, 5-year-olds needed more legroom than I ever did. They rolled out one of those colorful foam mats with the alphabet printed on it. Covered half the carpet I used to sit on while writing lyrics I never showed anyone. There was a tiny red plastic chair where my old desk used to be. And on the closet door, my mom hung up a poster of cartoon trucks. My name had been peeled off the whiteboard and replaced with Kyle's and rainbow letters. No one said it, but the message was clear. This room was not mine anymore. That weekend, I packed whatever I could into 3 cardboard boxes. A few clothes. Some chargers. My sketchbooks. The lava lamp I got for Christmas when I was 16. I do not even know why I kept that thing, but it came with me. I found a tiny studio apartment across town. Cheap. Cramped. The kind of place where you could hear your neighbor cough through the wall. The kind of place where the bathroom light flickered every time you turned on the fan. But at least it was mine. The first night, I slept on a mattress on the floor, surrounded by unopened boxes. No internet. No TV. Just me and the buzz of the fridge. I stared at the ceiling and tried to pretend I had done the right thing. That I was being the good son. That giving up my room was no big deal. But it was a big deal. Because that room was not just where I slept. It was where I felt safe. Where I went after breakups, after bad grades, after the world chewed me up. It was where I taped drawings on the walls, stayed up late thinking too hard, sat by the window during storms. And now, that space had been erased. They called it temporary, but deep down, I knew better. Nobody takes a room from someone they value. Not like that. Not without even pretending to make space somewhere else. I wanted to believe I mattered, that I belonged. But all I had now were 3 boxes, a buzzing fridge, and a quiet I could not fill. And just when I thought that was the worst of it, I saw what they posted online. It was a photo my mom posted. Just a sweet little snapshot of Kyle sitting on my old bed, now covered in a bright new blanket with cartoon planets. He was smiling, holding a juice box, surrounded by toys I did not recognize. The caption read, "So grateful to give our grandson a safe, happy space to grow in. Nothing more important than family." That part hit hard. Nothing more important than family. That was rich, coming from the same people who boxed up mine like it was seasonal decor, who gave away the one place in the world where I had history, where my name meant something. There was no mention of me. Not a word. It was like I had never existed in that space. Like it had always been Kyle's room, and I was just some temporary tenant. I stared at that post way longer than I should have. Every like and heart reaction felt like another invisible hand shoving me out the door. I did not comment. I did not call. What was I going to say? Hey, I used to sleep there before I was silently voted off the island? Instead, I closed the app, tossed my phone on the floor, and just sat in the silence. The walls of my apartment felt even tighter than before. The ceiling looked lower. I could hear a couple arguing 2 units over. Someone slammed a cabinet. A dog barked endlessly in the alley. This was not home. It was shelter. A place to exist, not to live. I tried to settle in. Bought a folding table from a thrift store. Got a second-hand microwave that smelled like burnt popcorn no matter what I cooked. Hung one of my old drawings on the wall just to feel like I was leaving a mark. But every night, I missed that room. That door that used to creak. That spot on the window where the sun hit perfectly in the mornings. I miss being part of something. That was when it really sank in. Maybe I never was. Maybe I was just useful, easy to move, quiet. The one they knew would not put up a fight. The thought sat heavy on my chest. Like a secret I did not want to admit, even to myself. But it was not a secret anymore. And just when I was learning to live with that silence, my sister called, out of the blue. She said they needed another favor. Her voice was light, almost cheerful, like we were just catching up, like none of what happened mattered. She asked how the new place was, if I had settled in yet. I said it was fine. I lied. She did not seem to care either way. Then she got to the real reason. Kyle's birthday was coming up. He wanted a special party, she said. Something memorable. They were doing a space theme. She said it like it was cute, like it had not gutted me to see him in my room surrounded by toy rockets. She needed help, she said. Could I pitch in with decorations? Maybe buy a few things? She sent a list, balloons, banners, a planet cake topper, a telescope, if I could swing it. I waited for her to say she was joking, that she realized how insane it was to ask me for anything after what they did. But no, she just kept talking. Said Mom and Dad were already doing so much, and Kyle had really come to see me as a kind of cool uncle. Like I should be flattered. Like being demoted from son to background character was some kind of honor. I stayed quiet for a long time. My stomach twisted. My hands felt numb. Then I told her I could not. She paused. Why not? I told her the truth. I said it plain. That it still hurt. That losing my room, my space, without a single real conversation, without any effort to include me, had not just been a bump in the road. It had felt like being cut loose. She laughed. Said I was being dramatic. That it was not personal. Not personal? How do you take the one place a person feels grounded, erase it, hand it to someone else, and say it is not personal? She told me to think about it. Said Kyle would be disappointed, as if that was supposed to sway me. I ended the call without saying goodbye. It wasn't silence. It was a decision. Then I sat there for a long time, staring at the wall, phone still buzzing in my hand. My heart was pounding, not from anger. Not exactly. It was grief. I was grieving a home that was never really mine. A family I was only part of when it was convenient. And just as I started to find peace in that bitter truth, just as I thought I could move on quietly, my dad showed up at my door. I did not even hear him knock at first. It was early. I was halfway through my second cup of coffee, still in sweatpants, scrolling through job listings I had already seen the day before. I had not shaved in a few days, and the place smelled faintly like instant noodles and cheap air freshener. When I opened the door, he was just standing there. My dad, still wearing that old brown jacket he always wore on Sundays, like it made him more approachable. In one hand, he had a plastic bag. I could see the edge of a pie box poking out, probably from the bakery near their house. He did not ask to come in. He just sort of stepped inside like he still owned the place. Looked around once and nodded like he approved. Like he had expected worse. Not bad, he said. I said nothing. He sat down in my only chair, uninvited, and placed the pie on my folding table. Apple. My favorite. I wondered if it was supposed to soften the blow of whatever he was about to say. Then came the speech. He said they knew it had been hard for me, that the decision was not easy, that it was about space and doing what was best for Kyle, that I had always been the strong one, the independent one, and they had trusted me to land on my feet. He said that like it was a compliment, like pushing someone out without a parachute was a sign of respect. I asked him flat out why they had never offered another room, why it had to be mine, why no one talked to me like an actual person before making the choice. He looked surprised, like it had not even occurred to him. Then he said something I will never forget. You were going to leave eventually anyway. That hit like a slap. I was not mad that they thought I would grow up and move out. That was normal. What broke me was how little my presence had mattered. How easily they had cleared me off the chessboard without even checking if I was ready. He patted the pie box and said something about still being part of the family. But all I heard was noise. I realized in that moment, I had not left. I had been let go. Quietly, politely, with smiles and temporary promises. I let him finish. Let him feel like he had done something. Then I walked to the door, opened it, and stood there until he understood. He picked up his jacket without a word. Left the pie. After he left, I sat alone, staring at that white box. And when I finally opened it, I found a note tucked underneath. It was from my mom. 4 words. You'll always have us. I folded it once. Then I lit a match. The paper curled fast. That little note, with those 4 meaningless words, burned slow at first, then flared up all at once. I dropped it in the kitchen sink and watched the ashes swirl into the drain like it never existed. You'll always have us. It was funny, in a cruel kind of way. Because the truth was, I never had them. Not really. I had been useful, quiet, easy to ignore. But having someone? That means they choose you. Not just when it is easy or convenient, but when it is uncomfortable, when it costs them something. And they never chose me. Not when they gave up my room without warning. Not when they expected me to show up with cake toppers and party favors like some background character in Kyle's little world. Not when they sent my dad to offer baked goods and empty words instead of an apology. I kept thinking about how long I had convinced myself it was love. That being overlooked was just something all kids went through. That being the easy one meant I was mature. But it did not mean that. It meant I was disposable. I looked around my tiny apartment. Still bare. Still hollow. But it was mine. That night, I started building something. Not furniture. Not a better resume. Something quieter, deeper. I started drawing again. The same way I used to when I was a teenager, sitting on my bedroom floor while the rest of the house buzzed around me like I wasn't even there. I pulled out my old sketch pad from one of the moving boxes I had never fully unpacked. The pages smelled like home in a way nothing else did. I started with the old house. Not how it looked in photos, but how it felt in pieces. A cracked doorknob. The chipped paint on my windowsill. The small burn mark on the carpet where I knocked over a candle in high school and panicked so bad I never told anyone. I drew all of it. Not because I wanted to remember, but because I needed to own it. My memories. My space. My story. I stayed up half the night filling page after page. And somewhere around 3 in the morning, while the city outside my window slept, I realized something I had never said out loud, not even to myself. I did not miss them. I missed the idea of them. The fantasy of a family that looked out for each other. Where my name mattered. Where I was not just the kid who was expected to step aside with a smile. That family never existed. And just when I thought I could finally let that dream die, a message popped up on my phone. It was from my sister. She said they were planning a big family dinner. Everyone was invited. Even me. The message was short. Family dinner Sunday. You should come. Everyone misses you. It sat on my screen like a dare. No apology. No acknowledgement. Just the assumption that I would come running the moment they opened the door again. Like the past few months had just been some misunderstanding, and not a quiet exile no one wanted to admit to. I stared at it for a long time. My first reaction was to delete it. Block her number. Go back to my drawings and pretend none of it mattered. But something pulled at me. Not anger. Not hope. Just unfinished business. I needed to see it through. So I replied. Said I would be there. Not because I wanted back in, but because I needed them to see what they had done. Sunday came fast. I put on my cleanest shirt. The one that still held the scent of the last laundry pot I could afford before switching to dollar store detergent. I took the bus across town. Rode in silence, window half-fogged, my breath tight in my chest. Their house looked the same. The porch light was on. The driveway was full. When I walked in, the noise hit me first. Laughter. Clinking plates. Kyle screaming about spaceships in the other room. The smell of roasted chicken and baked mac. The warmth that used to mean home. It felt like walking into a play I used to star in. But now I was just a ghost in the wings. No one rushed to greet me. No one even looked surprised. My mom hugged me like nothing had happened. My dad gave me that stiff nod he always used when he did not know what else to say. My sister smiled like we had just seen each other yesterday. They all made space for me at the table, somewhere near the end, beside Kyle's booster seat. There was a paper plate waiting, already filled. I sat. A few people asked the usual questions. How's the place? Work going okay? The kind of stuff people ask when they want to check the box, not really hear the answer. I answered politely, quietly, like I was supposed to. Then someone raised a glass. To family, they said. I stared at that glass like it was a loaded weapon. They clinked. They smiled. I stayed still. And that was when I realized something important, maybe the most important thing of all. I did not need this table anymore. I had my own. But I was not going to storm out. I was not going to yell. I would not give them that satisfaction. No, I had something better planned. I cleared my throat. And when they all turned to look at me, finally, really looked, I told them the truth. The room went still. Forks paused mid-air. Conversations halted like someone had pulled a plug. Even Kyle stopped humming his little spaceship song and looked up from his chicken nuggets. I did not raise my voice. I did not need to. I started simple. I told them I remembered everything. Every little moment they thought I had forgotten. The day they sat me down and said they needed my room for a while. The way they smiled through it like it was no big deal. The silence that followed when I moved out. No texts. No check-ins. No, how are you holding up? I told them how I stared at the blank walls of my studio apartment at night, trying to convince myself I had done the right thing, that I had helped, that I was still loved. But the truth? I felt like a stranger to the people who were supposed to be my foundation. I told them what it felt like to scroll through their photos, to see Kyle playing on the bed I had cried on, to see my name vanish from the door I had once decorated with old band stickers and college flyers, to see that I was never missed. Not really. My sister opened her mouth to speak. I held up my hand. I was not finished. I told them that being pushed out did not destroy me. It revealed them. It showed me what I was to them. Not a son. Not a brother. Just someone who kept quiet, made room, and carried weight that was never acknowledged. I told them I had built a life. One small step at a time. It was not flashy. It was not perfect. But it was mine. And it came without their help. Then I looked straight at my mom. Her eyes were glassy. You said I will always have you, I told her. But when I needed you, I had no one. The silence that followed was the heaviest thing I had ever heard. And then, I stood up. No plate finished. No dessert taken. No hugs exchanged. I looked around at each face one more time. Memorized their silence. Let it sink in deep. Then I turned and walked toward the door. And just before I stepped outside, my dad finally spoke. Wait, where are you going? I stopped. Kept my hand on the doorknob. Turned my head just enough. Home, I said. And then I left. The cold hit me first. That crisp evening air that always seems sharper after a heavy conversation. I stood on their porch for a second, letting the weight roll off my shoulders like a jacket I no longer needed to wear. No one followed me. I was not surprised. They probably sat there in stunned silence, waiting for the moment to pass, for everything to reset. But it would not. Not this time. I walked the 2 blocks to the bus stop. Took the long way home. Let the wind bite at my face, headphones in but no music playing, just the quiet thud of my footsteps. And for once, I felt light. Not happy. Not free, exactly. But clear. Like I had finally said out loud what I had been carrying for years. When I got back to my apartment, I did not turn on the lights right away. I stood in the dark, shoes still on, and looked around. The place was still tiny. Still smelled like my last attempt at microwave dinner. But something had shifted. This space, it was not a backup plan anymore. It was not the exile they made it out to be. It was mine. Every square foot. The peeling paint. The lopsided bookshelf I built from a thrift store kit. The mattress on the floor. The wall where my sketches had started to cover up the cracks. All of it. Mine. I grabbed my sketch pad, flipped to a fresh page, and drew a door. Just a plain wooden door. No name on it. No stickers. No locks. Just slightly open. Then I drew a figure walking away from it. Not running. Not slamming it shut. Just walking forward. It was not meant to be deep. Or poetic. It was just what I felt. And as the pencil moved across the page, I thought about everything they had lost when they pushed me out. Not out of anger, not as punishment, but because they could, because I had never demanded to be seen. Until now. And just as I was finishing the last stroke, my phone buzzed. One message. From my mom. It said, "I did not know. I am sorry. Please come by tomorrow. We want to talk." I stared at the screen, but I already knew what I was going to say. I did not reply to the message. Not right away. I let it sit in my inbox for 3 days. I opened it, read it again, then again, but I did not respond. Because I needed to be sure, really sure, that I was not walking backward just because someone finally noticed I was gone. By the 4th day, my sister texted too. She said Kyle kept asking when I was coming over. Said mom had been quiet. That dad barely spoke at dinner. She ended it with, "You made your point. Can we move on now?" That part made me laugh out loud. Quiet, bitter, and hollow. Move on. Like this had all been a spat. Like I had just thrown a tantrum, and now it was time to return to normal. But normal never included me. It just used me. I finally saw that for what it was. So I wrote them back. I kept it short. I said I was doing okay. That I appreciated the messages. That I hoped Kyle enjoyed his space-themed room. And I told them, gently but clearly, that I would not be coming back. Not because I hated them. Not because I wanted revenge. But because I deserved more than being someone they only remembered when they needed something. I told them I had found peace in my own place. That it may be small, but it was mine, and that mattered more than any seat at a table where I was never really seen. I ended it with this. I am not angry anymore. I just know better now. Then I turned my phone off. I went to the window, opened it, and let the cool evening air roll through my apartment. Outside, the streetlight flickered over the sidewalk, and somewhere in the distance, a dog barked. Inside, I sat at my little thrift store table, sketchpad open in front of me. The door I had drawn? I added one more detail. I shaded the figure's shoulders, gave them a little more weight, a little more presence. And in their hand, I drew a key. Because I was not walking away empty-handed. They lost something the day they pushed me out. They lost a son who was loyal even when he was overlooked, who kept showing up, who stayed quiet and helpful and kind long after he should have demanded better. And I found something. Not a new family, not some perfect life, but something steadier. Dignity, a place of my own, and a voice that finally belonged to me.